Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Tomorrow, President Biden will host leaders from both South Korea and Japan at a historic summit at Camp David in Maryland. The question is, what will be the real topics? What will be beyond the headlines? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We do know that the president's going to host this first standalone summit with Japan and South Korea, and we want to get beyond the headlines of that. Really pleased to have joining us on the show Ellen Nakashima, a national security reporter with the Washington Post. And on a breaking news day, Ellen, we appreciate you making some time for us. So we'll dive right in. Give us kind of the lay of the land in terms of what is likely to occur at Camp David. What are the objectives for the administration?
Yeah, thank you for having me. As you mentioned, this is a historic event. It is President Biden's first hosting of foreign leaders to Camp David since he took office, and in fact, first foreign leaders at Camp David at all since 2015. And it's a very high priority on the administration's agenda, which is to really sort of solidify a growing web of alliances and partnerships in the Indo-Pacific. And two of those key allies are South Korea and Japan. Each of those has a treaty, alliance with the United States, though the two of them, Japan and South Korea, do not themselves have any formal security alliance. Yet the fates, the security of all three are interlinked, and this summit is expected to affirm sort of publicly for the first time officially that their security is interlinked, and they are going to commit to consult one another in the event of a regional crisis. Now, they're not going to spell out exactly what all those crises would be, but we all know, what some of them are or could entail.
Yeah.
Of course, one of them is Chinese potential invasion or attack on Taiwan, and another might be a North Korean attack on the Korean Peninsula. Those are two of the big, looming concerns for the region.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one in terms of the navigation. Both South Korea and Japan have had great relationships with the United States independently. Their relationship has been much more tense over the years. And how do you see that kind of playing out? I love how you frame this in terms of the interconnectedness of these three countries. I think that's absolutely crucial to the region moving forward. But how do the historic ties and historic tensions play into all of this with South Korea and Japan?
Yeah, absolutely. So a major breakthrough that paves the way for this event we're seeing tomorrow is the what's been described as sort of courageous political move by Yoon Suk Yeol, the president of South Korea, to undertake a rapprochement with Japan to help resolve decades of recrimination over Japan's use of forced South Korean labor during, the war era and the occupation. And that has just really poisoned the chalice and made it difficult for the two countries to move beyond for decades, and especially domestically, politically in South Korea. But earlier this year, Yoon agreed to move toward resolving those differences, in part by having South Korean companies sort of make amends and pay victims and their families for the abuse, and that created a breakthrough, a political breakthrough, that then resulted in the two sides agreeing to come together for this trilateral summit. And I should say it's the first time the leaders of the three countries are meeting in a standalone summit for the security agenda. Yeah. They've always only met on the sidelines of other big multilateral meetings.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why this is so significant. You mentioned in your piece in the Washington Post today that having this is clearly putting a few chess pieces on the board. We know the ambassador to Japan, of course, Rahm Emanuel, who many are familiar with, described it that way in terms of this kind of chess move. And you also pointed out just how this might be unnerving a little bit to China in some ways. Explain that to us just a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Beijing has long decried the moves that the U.S. has been making, especially in the last year and a half, 2 years that the Biden administration has been in office, to solidify bilateral and trilateral partnerships in the region. You've seen the United States work with India and Japan and Australia and South Korea and the Philippines. They've got the Quad. They've got the AUKUS agreement to build nuclear-powered submarines with Britain for Australia. And all of those moves are being decried by Beijing as kind of the U.S. trying to create a mini NATO or an Asian NATO to counter and contain China. And so this is just going to be seen as another step in that direction by Beijing and Pyongyang as well. They are rattled by these steps towards greater partnerships with other countries in the region. Countries that had, some of them, been more not inclined to want to provoke China, especially because China is often their largest trading partner.
Right.
But because of the increasingly aggressive moves by China in the last number of years in the region, in the South China Sea, and significantly because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, these countries in the Indo-Pacific are now seeing that they feel like they need to kind of band together to create a stronger regional security and oppose what they see as some of the more unsavory types of actions by China in the region, like the response to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan last August, when China launched ballistic missiles over Taiwan and into Japan's economic zone. Those are the sorts of things that really upset and concern those countries. They see it as upsetting the stability in the region.
Yeah, great perspective, great insight. It will be a historic event at Camp David, an important meeting between Korea, Japan, and the United States. Of course, President Biden hosting all of that, and it's so interesting. The interconnectedness of this in the face of China and North Korea in particular, to have the economics, the military, the diplomacy pieces all coming together. I know it'll be a very busy couple of days for you there, Ellen. Ellen Nakashima, national security reporter at the Washington Post, always gives us great perspective. And Ellen, we look forward to having you help us debrief and connect all the dots on this one. I'm sure there'll be a lot of nuance as we watch this play out at Camp David.
Thank you very much.
All right, some great perspective as always there from Ellen Nakashima from the Washington Post. And again, this is a historic event at Camp David to have these three countries together, as Ellen mentioned, not just on the sideline of some other meeting or some other summit, just the three specific invitations. That has to be a little unnerving, I think, for China, for North Korea in particular. And I'm going to be very fascinated to watch the interaction between the Korean leader and the Japanese leader, because they've had a lot of tension there over the years. And as Ellen pointed out, some of that has eased just a little bit. And so could this be part of maybe a next step in terms of that relationship, crucial for the United States in terms of the geopolitical impact of it all? And again, so we'll watch the headlines as this plays out tomorrow at Camp David. There'll be a lot of nuance, and we'll connect all the dots for you as this plays out.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The Recovery and Rebuild will take a generation.
The fire was moving at a mile a minute.
We ran out of the house. I'm lucky to be alive.
Destruction of Lahaina. There is very little left there.
Maui Strong, you're seeing it in full display as people are coming out of the woodworks to serve, to help.
During these times, Utahns pull together to help friends and communities in need. Please join us by donating to the disaster relief right at our website. Look for Maui Strong at kslnewsradio.com.
Here is what I'm not buying. A bounce house, a paddleboard, a dump trailer, tables and chairs for a party, a 3D printer. I'm not buying them because I'm renting them on Utilize. Utilize is the app where you can rent almost anything, and you can rent out almost anything. Scroll through the Utilize app and you'll see kayaks, VR headsets, baby carrier backpacks, balloon arches, power tools, I mean almost anything. And renting is so easy, so local, and so much cheaper than buying stuff that sits in your garage. You need it, you rent it. And if you have stuff you don't use every day, rent it out on Utilize. I talked to one woman in Lehigh who rents out 80 different items that just sit around her house. It's an income stream. Imagine the possibilities. You can rent a sound system for a party, rent an e-bike for an adventure, need a tool for your DIY project, Utilize. Now it's spelled different. YOODLIZE. Utilize. Download the app and get a $20 credit when you use the code KSL. Utilize. YOODLIZE. It's in your app store.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief, and boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. We have some super exciting news. We're thrilled to announce our brand new store in Tooele. We have been hoping to expand to Tooele for years and finally found the perfect spot. In the heart of the city, Alpine is located just north of Walmart off Main Street. This store will be just like our others. We offer massive selection of home medical supplies. Do you need a CPAP? We've got it. Power scooter? Yep, you're in the right place. Need assistance in your home? We'll get you all set up. Keep your expectations high. We really do have the best staff in the state. You should know we accept most major insurances and can work directly with your provider to get you the care you need. We'll be ready when you need us, so come on by anytime. We're excited to see you in Tooele.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Dave and Debbie.
Where do people in Utah have an opportunity on a regular basis to voice their opinions? That's on our show on KSL News Radio. You have a way to share your experiences and to get your message out to the entire community. Where else in Utah can they go? Nowhere. That's on our show.
We have to be so careful not to take things out of context. It's very easy to manipulate what someone says to fit your own narrative. And we don't want to do that. We want to take your best argument, you take my best argument, and if we don't always say it perfectly, that's okay. It's a conversation. It's a give and take.
Listeners call the show and are willing to share how they're dealing with life circumstances. This is why our show is so important to this community and why our listeners are so important to KSL News Radio.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio. This week's movie show brought to you by My Hearing Centers. Learn about the amazing new Signia X hearing aid and find out how you could win a free pair from My Hearing Centers.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, a new eye center will open right in the heart of Parkview Elementary School to help students with vision issues. Second, the number of U.S. single-family homes being built surged in July despite rising mortgage rates. Third, the ex-wife of the Microsoft exec who was killed last year has been charged in his murder. Right now, it's 95 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Earlier this week, America's Chief of Naval Operations retired from his post, but there was nobody there to replace him. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville's decision to continue to block military nominees that do require Senate confirmation means that the military is currently operating with 3 major leadership posts left vacant. Of course, there's a lot of downstream ripple effect in terms of promotions, transfers, and so on, impacting a number of military families across all of the different disciplines. And so we want to get into both what the issue is and what the possible solutions are, because I don't think we're talking about the right solutions that are clearly within the power and the realm of the Senate to get done. But let's start with the problem itself. So while at the retiring ceremony for the Chief of Naval Operations, the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, spoke on this issue and stressed the urgency of resolving this situation before it gets worse.
As you know, more than 300 nominations for our outstanding general and flag officers are now being held up in the United States Senate. That includes our top uniformed leaders and our next Chief of Naval Operations. Because of this blanket hole, starting today, for the first time in the history of the Department of Defense, 3 of our military services are operating without Senate-confirmed leaders. This is unprecedented, it is unnecessary, and it is unsafe.
Now, I 100% agree with everything Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin just said. There are 300 nominations that are being held up. It's the first time in the Department of Defense history that there's been 3 branches that have had 3 major leader positions open. It's unprecedented, it's unnecessary, and it's unsafe. I agree with all of that. Secretary Austin went on to talk about the toll this is taking on military families and on our national defense.
And this sweeping hold is undermining America's military readiness. It's hindering our ability to retain our very best officers. And it is upending the lives of far too many American military families. Our troops deserve better. Our military families deserve better. And our allies and partners deserve better, and our national security deserves better. So let me say again that smooth and swift transitions of confirmed leadership are central to the defense of the United States and to the full strength of the most lethal fighting force in history.
I agree with everything Secretary of Defense Austin said in that statement. It's undermining military readiness. It's upending lives. Over 300 military families can't move to their next post or assignment. Kids can't get enrolled in school. Housing can't be secured. There's a vast ripple effect that is unnecessary, and it is unnerving to a lot of those military families who sacrifice so much as they move around to different assignments. Now, let's start pivoting a little bit. So recently, presidential candidate Nikki Haley commented on this situation, criticizing Senator Tuberville for taking this kind of tactic in holding these nominations against the military.
I appreciate what Tuberville's trying to do. I do. Like, it's totally wrong that the Department of Defense is doing this. But have we gotten so low that this is how we have to go about stopping it? I mean, at what point can we not go and have, congressional members go to the Department of Defense and say, look, you have to go through Congress if you're going to do this. You can't suddenly decide you're going to do this. Don't make us have to do this. I just think it shouldn't get to this point.
So just kind of a practical plea there, I think, from Nikki Haley. Now, here's where the rethinking of it all comes. So as you've watched this play out, I'm sure you've seen headlines on this. You've probably even seen a few fundraising emails coming from both the left and right in terms of what's going on in this situation. And now I want to get to the real issue in terms of how do we solve this? Both sides have decided this is a really good political talking point for them. Because if it weren't, this would have been solved a long time ago. We never would have gotten to this point where we have 300 positions that have not been confirmed, that need to be confirmed by the Senate. And so this goes to the beyond the headline and beyond the talking point and soundbite moment that we have to get to in these conversations. You will not hear on any of the national cable networks the easiest possible solution that actually has nothing to do with Senator Tuberville. It actually has to do with the members of the United States Senate, starting with the Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, and the Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell. Recently, I had an interview with James Wallner from the R Street Institute about this very situation, and he talked about how not only was the situation avoidable, but the fact that the Senate doesn't actually need Tuberville's permission to confirm these nominees.
The Senate has rules and practices that are very clear about how you get a vote on presidential nominations. But the Senate doesn't like to follow those rules. It doesn't like to follow those rules ever for bills or for nominations. And so what it does is that senators go down to the floor and they ask unanimous consent to waive the rules. And in many cases, it's to just vote on the nominee right then and there, or in many respects, to approve the nominee without a vote at all. Senator Tuberville is saying, I don't want to give you my consent, which he has every right to do. It's unanimous consent after all. And they are now accusing him that he has this huge power to veto these nominees, when in reality, it's their efforts to get around the rules and waive the rules that's letting Tuberville do this.
So, again, under the rules of the Senate, it is the right of Senator Tuberville to object to a unanimous consent. But that's not where it ends. There's a whole other process that can be gone down to get these things done. But it's much easier for both sides to just point to one senator and say, well, he's holding up the entire United States military. He's putting the entire nation at risk. One person. It is true that Senator Tuberville is refusing to allow it to be a unanimous consent, which means you have to vote on it. But guess what? They can vote on that right away. They could sweep these things through. In fact, in my conversation with James Wallner, we went through that. We actually talked through how the situation could be done and why this is much more politically motivated than anything else. And sadly, this is where the military readiness is really being put at risk, not on policy, not on principle, but on politics.
They have plenty of time. They have had plenty of time, and they still have plenty of time because the Senate doesn't do that much stuff. If they would only just follow their rules. But instead, as you said, I think it makes more political sense for them and electoral sense for them to accuse Senator Tuberville of having a power that, quite frankly, he doesn't have. If they want to vote on a nominee, then they shouldn't ask for his permission. And if they do, they shouldn't be surprised if he says no. After all, every senator has a right to say no when you ask unanimous consent.
So this is an easy fix. This is an easy fix. So I just want to point out, one, I agree with the Secretary of Defense. This is unprecedented, unnecessary, and unsafe. I also think it's absolutely ridiculous that we put our military families through this. The uncertainty, the undermining of confidence that it creates in our military families, also unprecedented, unnecessary, and unsafe. And Senator Tuberville cannot do this on his own. The only reason that none of this is done, it should have been done in January. It should have been done in February. It should have been done in March, April, May, June, July, and the first half of August. There was more than enough time. They could call themselves back into session and have this done in a week. It's not that hard if they're willing to follow their own rules. Process matters. And when you follow the process, things get done. And so I disagree with Senator Tuberville that this is the strategy that is best for him to get a point across in dealing with the Department of Defense on a host of other issues. I disagree with that. But it is his right. Every senator has that right. But the solution is so simple, and it could be done in a week. We're having a fake fight, being presented a false choice, and this is what's actually broken. We'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Good afternoon. It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour, the National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning for Escalante until 4 o'clock this afternoon. Move to higher ground and avoid driving through any floodwaters. A southern Utah woman is in custody accused of leaving her baby in someone's driveway and driving off. Police say the woman hit the back of a truck's trailer hitch, tried to start the truck, then offloaded belongings from her car into the driveway. That included her baby still in a car seat. That's when she drove off.
People who are in the driveway are wondering what's going on. She has no connection to these people. They call police. Police, based on the items that are left, other items that are left on the curb, they're able to identify her.
KSL.com reporter Pat Reevy tells David Dujanovic this is the third time in less than a week that a baby has been found left alone by its mother in Utah. Utah has a safe haven law that allows parents to safely and anonymously give up custody of their newborn child at any hospital in the state. A child abuse and neglect hotline number is 855-323-DCFS. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Officials are investigating 3 deaths reported in New York State and Connecticut linked to a dangerous bacteria found in raw shellfish or seawater. Dr. Bernard Kamens, an expert in infectious disease at the Mount Sinai Health in New York City, says seek treatment if you believe you've come in contact with the bacteria.
You do need to just watch out, especially if you're in a high-risk category, that if you have a cut on your leg, to not wade in seawater, potentially avoid it, and to look at the warning signs, right? So redness, warmth, tenderness to that spot.
Your money at this moment, the Dow is in the red, 246 points. The S&P is also down 27 points, and the NASDAQ has lost 133 points. Coming up, things are going to start cooling down. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Take advantage of our 83 or It's Free mainline drain clearing special. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
At the UPS store, you can ship it all. We're your bulky sports equipment shipping store, your heavy luggage shipping store, your fancy art shipping store. We're even your I can't believe it's already time for back to school shipping store. So visit your neighborhood We Ship It All store for dependable UPS shipping with easy-to-use tracking and competitive rates. The UPS store. Be unstoppable. The UPS store locations are independently owned. Product, services, pricing, and hours may vary. See Center for details.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have the final cleanup of this accident in Lehigh, southbound I-15 by the SR-92 exit. All the vehicles are now out of traffic on the right shoulder. Gillette Heating and Air Conditioning is offering spring air conditioner tune-ups for only $59. Call 801-825-4500 to schedule today. A Carrier Factory authorized dealer. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, it's hot out there right now, but we're only going to get cooler from here. Scattered thunderstorms are moving in and we'll have highs just in the 80s over the weekend. Right now it's 97 degrees and sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
And I'm always looking for that insight, that piece that just allows you to exhale slightly and then say, okay, there is a path. There is a way to get this. Of course, the Constitution inspired document. I think one of the most underappreciated components to everything we have in this country is the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And Stephanie Slade, senior editor of Reason magazine, had a brilliant piece in Law and Liberty called The Promise of the Bill of Rights. And Stephanie joins us on the line. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's dive into this piece about the Bill of Rights and those first 10 amendments. There really is some secret sauce in there. Describe it for us.
Sure. The question is, we have clearly a lot of fragmentation and fracturing in this country, lots of polarization. This is nothing new, I'm sure, to anyone. And so the question is, how does the Constitution give us tools that allows us to be a diverse, bunch of different people with different values living in one country and live together in, peacefully, to coexist in peace? And my argument is that the Bill of Rights does this specifically by taking entire political questions off the table and saying there are some things that we're just not going to have politics and government be involved in, telling you, for example, what kind of speech, what kind of things are you, political expressions are you allowed to express? You get to speak, your mind, regardless of whether a majority of voters, a majority in Congress, the president likes it and agrees, or even thinks it's dangerous. We have that right because the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment in this case, takes speech off the table in terms of what government gets to weigh in on and have an opinion on and control you about. And I think that's a key to living peacefully, is actually taking things out of our politics, off the table, and saying we're not going to pass laws like this. We're going to let people make different choices and live the way they like, as opposed to saying we've got to try to find some way to make everybody be united under one set of values or one set of practices. Yeah,
and I love the way you have framed this, that it's taking those things off the political table. It's like these things are non-negotiable. I also love the fact that you got into the history of all of this, because there was clearly some concern by the founders about putting things down, and whether that would isolate it or make it just those 10. Give us some of the historic perspective there.
Yeah, that's right. So the drafters of the Constitution initially did not include a Bill of Rights at all. There were no amendments. And they thought that the Constitution was perfect. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, he thought it was perfect without a Bill of Rights. But when they sent it out to the states to be ratified, what they found was that the American public, the people, they balked and they said, no, we want our rights to be spelled out, enumerated, put down in ink. We want to carve them in stone, and we want to make sure that there's no chance that there's any confusion about what our rights as people are and what the limitations on government power are. And so over the course of the 2 or 3 years after after the Constitution itself was ratified, they wrote and then ratified the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments that explicitly spell out what we as people have as rights and what the limitations, what the government may not do, where it may not venture, the sort of areas that are off limits for government to go.
Yeah, I think that's such an important component to all of this. And as you look at some of those things taken off, you talked about the First Amendment and that speech component, just taking that off the political table. It's not going to be to the whims of whoever's in the majority at any given moment. Give us some other examples out of the Bill of Rights in terms of things that we can just say, this one doesn't need politics because the founders said it this way, so we can just remove that from that conversation.
Right. So the Second Amendment would be an example. It would basically say if you want to restrict the rights of people to keep and bear arms, you would have to actually go through the full process of amending the Constitution, because it is built into our Constitution that the people have that right. So it's not subject to just mere majority will, majority control. That would be an example. Another one I mentioned is that if you look at the sort of Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments, the sort of due process-y amendments, they say things like the government cannot lock you up without respecting your rights to due process. It cannot seize your property without fairly compensating you for it. So it doesn't matter, again, if the party in power, the person in power, the president or the Congress says, well, we need your property, for an important governmental purpose. It can't just take it. You have rights. And if they look at you and say, well, you're a threat to the democracy or to our society, we're going to lock you up. Well, they can't just do that. They first have to jump through the hoops of respecting your rights and go through due process. So just having the political will, a majority again in Congress, or the president who wants to do something, it's not enough. You have to actually we have rights that have to be respected. And then another one that I spend a lot of time in the piece, of course, is another aspect of the First Amendment besides free speech, which is religious liberty, being a thing that, we just do not want the government telling us what kind of, how to go about worshiping God, living out our faith. That is not a thing that we want to be on the political table at all, especially at the federal level.
Yeah, in fact, I want to go down that path because you close out your piece talking about something we talk about often here on this show, and that's federalism as such an important component to all of this. And you can have the left-right battles on the national scale, but there's so much of this that the founder said, you know what, this has to be done at the state level. Describe that for us.
I think that federalism is incredibly important, and it's a big part of why our system works. However, I actually pushed back a little bit in the piece on the idea that federalism is the most important thing that the Constitution gives us, although it does give us that as a tool. Because what I say is that in many cases, all the same reasons that we don't want to be imposing a one-size-fits-all solution on the nation from the top down from Washington would actually apply to states at this point. Our states are so large, they're so internally diverse, right? We have so many people with conflicting values and perspectives and opinions within any given state that trying to impose a one-size-fits-all solution at the state level runs into many, if not all, of the same problems as at the federal level. And so what we actually saw in American history was that when the Constitution was first ratified, it only stopped the federal government from establishing religion, but it allowed states, if they wanted to have an established church in Maryland or in Virginia, they were allowed to do that. If they wanted to collect taxes at the state level and use them to fund churches, they were allowed to do that. And several states did that in the beginning. But what we realized pretty quickly over time, what the founding generation of Americans realized was, those same arguments that made us have a First Amendment at the federal level that stopped us from having the government interfere and put its finger on the scales of religion at the federal level, those same arguments apply at the state level. And so every single state got rid of its established church voluntarily. They got rid of the using tax dollars to go to fund religion. They said, we don't want government involved in this. We don't think this is a good use of government power, even at the state level. What localities and individuals and families and communities and members of a church who have the right to come and go as they please, let them make these choices and not use the coercive power of the government to be trying to do this thing.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you raised that, because often we do go to federalism, but then you have to keep moving that down the chain, because you can have that big thing at the top of a state where you've got a diverse state, and you need to get it more and more local, closer to the people. I love the way you closed out the piece, and just in our last minute here, you go down this path of federalism, gradualism, and compromise in order to get good governments in a diverse society. But you also said there's something even more to that. Describe that one for us.
Yeah, so federalism, gradualism, and compromise are all components of the Constitution. But I think that this whole point of saying, there are some things, some issues that government shouldn't be deciding at all. Even if it's done through federalism, even if it's done gradually, even if it's done through compromise, there are some questions that it's not government's job to answer those questions. It's our individual or our community's job to answer those questions. And so realizing that some issues do not need to be decided by government at all is, I think, the most important thing that the Constitution gives us.
I love that. And I think that's an important thing for all of us to remember today. There are just a host of things that shouldn't be decided by government. Government has a role, to be sure, but it shouldn't be deciding everything. That is part of the brilliance of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and that is really the foundation. This is a brilliant piece. Stephanie Slade, senior editor of Reason Magazine. And Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us today. Great stuff.
Thank you so much.
All right, great insight there. Again, there are some things that the Bill of Rights just takes off the table politically, and we should leave it off the table because that's not where the battle should be. Let's have a different kind of conversation. Love the way that was framed. You can check that piece out at Law and Liberty. We'll be back. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Soon, this hot summer will give way to shorter days, beautiful colors, sunshine that seems a little dimmer. And before we know it, we're back to school shopping and cheering for our favorite football team. As the season changes, so will the news and weather. And we'll be here to cover it all. Plus, BYU sports coverage and traffic updates to get you to the game on time. KSL News Radio, your year-round companion for news.
You know, of all the things that I've found along my soda weight loss journey, again, 37 pounds down in 90 days. I'm 20 months past into it now, still cruising right along, 37 pounds down. The pounds and inches just kind of fall off because the system works. It's based on science. You've got all the resources you need from your own coach and nutritionist to a really holistic approach to everything from emotional eating to just making sure you're getting the nutrients that your body needs. But I have to tell you, one of my favorite sounds of all of this has been the click of my belt. It went from only having a few clicks a day. Now I get to click all the way across my belt buckle, 37 pounds down, and you can do the same. It's part of the SOTA weight loss system. It's SOTA, state-of-the-art weight loss, because it is state-of-the-art. And when it comes to your SOTA weight loss journey, as I always say, there's no time to lose, only time to win, so start winning today with SOTA Weight Loss. Check them out online at sotaweightloss.com, SOTAweightloss.com.
Quality, speed, value for your money, and $1,000 off any roof replacement. That's the IWC advantage. IWC, Intermountain West Contractors, delivers on the things most important to you when it comes time to replace your roof. There could be a dozen different reasons why your roof needs replacement, but just one answer to the problem: IWC. With IWC, you get quality because roof replacement is their specialty, and each job comes complete with the best warranties from the most trusted roofing material manufacturer in America. You get speed because IWC understands your time is valuable. In most cases, they can replace an entire roof in just one day. And with IWC, there's the value of knowing they use top-tier quality materials in every installation and deliver it all at an affordable price. And now, for a limited time, save $1,000 on a roof replacement project. Visit IWCroofing.com or call 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690.
It takes a lot of patience to be an investor these days. Record high inflation, layoffs, record high debt leading to debt ceiling talks. But in the meantime, the market is looking ahead, reacting to what could happen next. You don't have to do this alone. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, telling you to take advantage of the high interest rates while they're here. Regardless of what's going on in the world, there are winners and there are losers when it comes to what you put your money into now. Because of the high interest rates, you may qualify for an upfront bonus of up to 25% just for opening an account and guaranteed growth of up to 10% for your retirement income. This exists because of the high interest rates. Don't leave your money sitting in the bank earning nothing or leave that 401k constantly fluctuating. Roll it over and open an account with Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600 or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you have a drain that's clogged or backed up, after you've tried the plungers and products, the next step usually involves some kind of drain snake or cabling equipment. You see, sometimes the blockage is far enough down the line that you need special equipment that most homeowners just don't have. That's where the Drains Department at Any Hour Services can help. A drain snake can clear most blockages and get the water flowing again, and clearing blocked drains is what our Drains Department does day in and day out. So if you're a homeowner with a drain line that's clogged or backed up and you'd like one of our drain technicians to come and snake the line for you, it's only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from a station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, the National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning for Escalante until 4 o'clock this afternoon. Second, a southern Utah woman is in custody accused of leaving her baby in someone's driveway and driving off. Third, officials are investigating 3 deaths reported on the East Coast linked to a dangerous bacteria found in seawater. Right now, it's 97 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
This week marked the 2-year anniversary of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Since that day 2 years ago, one woman, Crystal Bayat, based here in Utah, has been working to try and help people escape her country, which is now, of course, being ruled by the Taliban. KSL News radio reporter Hugo Ricard-Bell spoke with Crystal about her experience, and Hugo's in studio with us. And Hugo, I actually want to start with something that you got from your conversation with Crystal. As she was one, obviously, who left Afghanistan during the withdrawal, I just love this description she had in terms of her experience.
I was one of those people to come through those days, and frankly, it will be always a black memory in my life to see the chaos that they created in airport and how people were dying in front of our eyes, especially the bomb blast, or how the Taliban were shooting on people, killing American soldiers and Afghan civilians close to the airport. I mean, we never expected that the way the United States closed its door for us and just handed over for a terrorist group, where right now they banned us from very, very basic rights. So right now I'm here, but still I feel like my people are suffering. My people are going through so much.
That is an extraordinary account in terms of that, what she called a black memory in her life, the chaos that ensued following the U.S. withdrawal. She went on to say that her people, in many respects, feel abandoned and even a little betrayed by the United States.
20 years of our resistance with the Taliban and giving sacrifice because what the U.S. had mentioned in Afghanistan was a waste. They didn't feel like we stood with them. We supported them in Afghanistan. I mean, particularly I oppose government the way they have this diplomacy with Afghanistan. I believe Americans are very nice. They are helping, loving people, trying to help people as much as they can. But the U.S. government just give the feeling for our people that they're betrayed and abandoned.
Hugo Ricard-Bell joins us in studio now. And Hugo, give us a sense of your conversation. Now, you came back from this conversation with your mind rolling in a few different directions. What was your takeaway?
I mean, first off, Crystal's she's quite an overwhelming person to meet. She's gone through a million lifetimes in just one. But she really touched on, that feeling of abandonment from the U.S. government that maybe she herself doesn't personally feel, because she is here and that sort of thing, but definitely people back home, family members and friends and that community, that are still sort of, waiting to get out from underneath the Taliban rule.
Yeah, so fascinating. She does have a nonprofit now, and after the U.S. withdrawal, she actually changed her mission of her nonprofit to actually help those inside of Afghanistan be able to escape.
Yeah, that's right. So she has 2 major focuses in Afghanistan. One of those is educating women. The Taliban have a very strict ruling when it comes to women in particular. They're very oppressed over there. And so she sets up things like secret schools and that sort of stuff so young girls can get educated. The other thing she did was she set up the Zan Library, or the Women's Library as it's known, in Kabul, so women can self-study.
Yeah.
But her focus right now is that evacuation process, and so she helps coordinate it from the US. That's things like helping organize visas, helping. One of the big things is getting men in Afghanistan to chaperone women to airports, because women can't enter the airport or fly without a man with them. Things like smuggling, helping them get to Pakistan and that sort of thing. So that's what actually most of her nights are taken up doing because of the time difference.
Yeah, that middle of the night WhatsApp, texting a million miles a minute, trying to negotiate and navigate all of that. It just has to be an exhausting thing. Like, you got to be all in to live that kind of life and be engaged and lean in that way.
Well, I mean, she organised the interview with me, or the meetup. We sort of met in her office here to have a chat. I was there for about an hour and a half, but she organised it at 2:00 in the morning. So that gives you an indication that she's working pretty hard.
Yeah. And despite all of those difficulties, Crystal really feels like this is her time to do something a little different than maybe what she had planned on doing at this stage of her career with her nonprofit. Here's how she described it.
It's been challenging, but I really enjoy it, like as far as I'm helping people who really need us, I thought like it's the time to help my people. We can get a degree, a piece of paper all the time. Like, it will be available always for me, but it's the moment to help these people and not let them to suffer more.
And Boyd, she's got help as well. Part of catching up for her yesterday, she introduced me to two women that were there with her. One's Pokazar and one's Frozan. They landed in Utah from Afghanistan, escaped Afghanistan 14 days ago.
Oh my God.
And they're already on the clock and working to help other women get back here and to the US and that sort of thing.
And so as you look forward, and as Crystal looks forward, she was a student here as well. So when she said she can get a degree anytime, she's going to set that aside because this is her time, this is her season to help her people who are suffering back in Afghanistan. Give us a sense of what Crystal's vision is moving forward, and what does that look like?
I mean, there's the really big picture, liberation of women in Afghanistan. But, right now she's campaigning very hard with a lot of other people to get the Afghan Adjustment Act passed, which you've spoken a lot about on your show. Basically, it streamlines the process for people in the US who are already here from Afghanistan to gain their residencies. Congress for the last couple of years, votes have gone amiss. Some of the reasons why they're actually quite hard to find, I have to admit. But one is major talking point has been the national security risk. That was really interesting. When I read that, I spoke to Aidan Battar this morning, Catholic Community Services Director, who's been on the show before. And, his comment was pretty blunt. He's like, they're already here. Most of them helped the US, with their fight over in Afghanistan. And, in his opinion, they've been vetted. They're here, so why re-vet them? This would help America focus on the people yet to come in the refugee status rather than deal with I think it's somewhat 80,000 people who are still waiting to get that status. And that was Aidan Battar's take.
Yeah, and I think that's an important take. We talked about that on the show yesterday in terms of those who were interpreters, who were guides, who helped American forces stay safe in Afghanistan. They clearly had been vetted. They had proven themselves not just worthy partners, noble, courageous, fiercely loyal partners. And we need to make sure we're keeping our promises to them and to put them in a space of uncertainty because of a process, to me, is not what we do to our friends and allies around the world.
Yeah, and Boyd, being a reporter on something like this, you really do try and find both sides of the argument. And this has actually been one of the ones for me that's been more difficult to find the opposing argument. We hear about the national security stuff, but even talking to Afghanistan, like veterans and that sort of thing, who do have PTSD about it, I'm yet to find a bad word said about the forces, the Afghan forces that helped them and that sort of thing. So I think a lot of people stand on the same point of view here.
Yeah, no question about that. Hugo Ricard-Bell, great reporting. As always, great conversation with Crystal. And she is proving out once again that I think freedom in Afghanistan will continue to have a very feminine face as they go underground, as they work to educate the young women. That will be the ultimate winner of the day there in Afghanistan. All right, that wraps up hour number one of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Hour number two coming up next on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. Many Utah school districts are working towards a fleet of electric school buses. The Grant and Incentive Section Manager for the Division of Air Quality, Lisa Burr, says the EPA's Clean School Bus program is helping them achieve it.
EPA Clean School Bus program will continue for the next 3 years because it is a 5-year program, and EPA it's the first program of its kind through EPA.
The Uinta and Tintic school districts got the first rounds of funding, Uinta receiving 10 buses and Tintic receiving 2. Mortgage interest rates just hit their highest level in 21 years. But KSL News Radio's Heather Kelly reports the increased rates haven't put a damper on housing construction.
Sales prices for new housing is coming down from pre-pandemic highs, and that led to a surge of single-family homes being built in July, with even more future construction permits being filed. Economists tell Reuters this boon is likely to prevent feds from raising interest rates again next month.
Experts say interest rates are continuing to rise even without the Fed, and it could slow down the housing market yet again. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. 1 week after the wildfires consumed homes on Maui, many thousands are displaced, more than 100 people are confirmed dead, and more than 1,000 people are still missing. Survivors are recounting their stories.
A week ago, imagine that Tuesday. You're here on the island of Maui, and suddenly you start to see fires from the upcountry where we are, coming from the mountains, onto the western side, onto the other side. I've had people tell me that at one point they didn't know which way to turn to because they saw smoke and flames in every direction.
ABC's Melissa Adan reporting. Your money at this moment, the Dow in the red, 291 points. The S&P is also in the red, 34 points. The NASDAQ is off 157 points. Coming up, we'll take a look at what the weekend is going to be like. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:02.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. We're here in the dog days of summer. Yes, the month of August. And you know, to get that perfect steak, you don't have to be out there in the hot weather. You don't have to be slaving over that barbecue. All you have to do is get into Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, and they do all the work for you. They do all of the prep. They do all of the grilling. They do all of the cleanup. And you are going to have the best steak you have ever had. At either location, 275 Southwest Temple, right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. A lot of people, of course, like to combine the Ruth's Chris experience with something going on downtown, maybe a concert, just a simple movie. And then there's Hotel Park City. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, if you're going to be up in Summit County, going for a hike, just getting away, going to the outlet stores. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, Hotel Park City. The best steak you have ever had is waiting for you right there at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
When words come out of our mouths and everything sounds fine, no one bats an eye. But if things come out a little jumbled or letters sound different than most, there's speech therapy. But did you know that speech therapy is used for more than just stuttering or disfluency? From articulation to expressive and receptive language to a simple act of swallowing that most of us take for granted, speech therapy can do amazing things for you, your health, and of course your sense of self. That's why Summit Speech Therapy is here. Summit Speech Therapy works with people of all ages, from infants and toddlers who have a difficult time feeding or eating, TBI, stroke, or coma patients, to children and adults with speech problems. So much of it is all related, and Summit Speech Therapy can help. Summit works with all insurance companies as well as private pay options, and the experience can be life-changing. With clinics up and down the Wasatch Front, including Murray, with no long waiting for an appointment. For more, visit summitslp.com. That's summitslp.com.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have had a little bit of heavy and slow traffic eastbound And from northbound I-215's East Belt to go eastbound I-80 as you're approaching the mouth of Parley's Canyon. It looks like that has started to clear out and traffic is moving once again. Not really sure what was causing that backup. And an accident in the final cleanup stages eastbound Highway 40 at the Highway 189 junction in Heber. Give your savings a boost with 5% APY on a 12-month certificate from Cyprus Credit Union. Learn more at cypruscu.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, another warm one today, topping out at 96 degrees, but we'll start to get some relief as temps cool a bit with chances of scattered thunderstorms later today, and those storms could carry through Monday. Right now it's 96 degrees and sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The headlines continue to focus on indictments, grand juries, congressional hearings, cover-ups, obstruction, lies, and legal justifications. The question beyond the headline for me is, have we come to the point where situational ethics and selective moral outrage have put the country in a tragic tailspin? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We are thrilled to have joining us on the program today Cliff Smith. Cliff is a lawyer, former congressional staffer on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Lives in Washington, D.C. as well, where he works on national security-related issues. He's the Washington Project Director at the Middle East Forum and actually joins us today from India. And Cliff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it.
Wonderful piece at Deseret.com talking about perspective and really looking at kind of this moral integrity. A lot of folks, when they talk about Watergate, they see that as kind of a low point. You actually start your piece by saying this was actually some pretty high ground in terms of where we are morally. Give us the explanation.
Well, I think in Watergate, you can debate sort of Nixon's position and what he did and what he didn't do a lot. There's a lot of nuance to it. What I think was unequivocally good in Watergate, however, was ultimately Barry Goldwater, who was, his party's, the Republicans' nominee in 1964, went to Nixon and basically said, hey, look, we don't like what you've done. We don't like, what this is doing to the country. And, you can resign to save the country and yourself some problems. But one way or another, you're going because we're not going to support you. And he told Nixon that he himself would be willing to remove him and would do so if it got him to a Senate vote. And that basically was the Republicans, replacing themselves for the good of the country. And that is something I think has gotten lost in recent years. And as I state in my article, I think it's hit a very low point under Donald Trump for reasons that a lot of people might be familiar with. But it really started with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, while I do not consider his crimes and misdeeds on the same level as we've seen with the issues of Donald Trump trying to overturn the election and some of these other things, they were quite bad, and they were well known and obviously bad. He was clearly abusing his power to have an affair with an intern. Then he perjured himself to cover it up. And what was worse about that, which was in stark contrast to Nixon, was Clinton used his office and his power and, frankly, his despising of the other party to portray himself as a victim, say, oh, look, this is all a vast right-wing conspiracy. This is just about nothing. This is all politics. And basically didn't try to say, oh, I didn't do it, or didn't try to say, anything other than, well, the people you don't like are coming after me, so defend me. And frankly, it worked. His approval rating went up while he was impeached for obstruction of justice and perjury. And that's a really horrifying precedent. And he rallied his party to do the opposite of what Goldwater did. Yeah. And I think that started in a real downturn in public morality.
Let's kind of unpack that just a little bit, just for our listeners, because I think there's so many important lessons in there. We often talk about it in the context of it's easy to yell at your enemies. The real test is when you speak truth to your friends when they're wrong. And that's become increasingly difficult. And I think that was the thing in Watergate. Again, a lot of challenges and a lot of low points in Watergate. But I do think that was a high point when people of the same political party said, no, the good of the country is more important than power in the presidency. And chose to stand up and say that. You mentioned Clinton and where that went to in terms of obstruction of justice and perjury and so on, and then people being unwilling to have that same conversation. And then we've seen that, as you said, continue to spiral to a lot of the things, including many of those that are in religious groups across the country where, again, I still buy into this thing that we've deified our politics and we've politicized our religious spaces. And you point this out in your piece really powerfully in terms of what has happened as everyone in the pursuit of power begins to not speak truth to their friends and just battles their enemies regardless of the issue.
Yeah, I agree. And as I point out in my piece, somebody that was respected in my household growing up was Dr. James Dobson. He was seen as a very smart, thoughtful man of sort of Christian conservative crowd. And I remember I was a teenager at the time, but he wrote a letter in 1998 discussing the moral failings and the legal failings, frankly, of Bill Clinton, and said that, look, accepting this a man is a good leader in spite of, these things is fundamentally incompatible, I believe is the words he used, with the good of the nation. And character matters, and its effect on the public matters. And the funny thing is, I agreed with him then, and I grew up believing that. And years later, when this thing became an issue in my party, I spent years working in Republican politics. Quite frankly, I was shocked to see so few people stand up and say the things that someone, frankly, like Mitt Romney was saying, that, look, this is just beyond the pale. We can't go here. And it was even more shocking to me a few years later when Dr. Dobson, who, in his defense, I guess, is much older and maybe, I don't know, maybe just forgot. But either way, he fell victim to his own prophecy. He predicted that Bill Clinton's quest to justify himself would end in a dynamic where people no longer recognized that which was simply wrong. And the funny thing is he himself fell victim to it. He endorsed Donald Trump, not in a way that he said, look, we're stuck with really bad choices and we really need to wrestle with this. This is complicated. I can respect anybody who makes a different decision, but I've decided to vote for Trump because X, Y, and Z. Even if I wouldn't have agreed, that I could have respected. What I couldn't respect was for him to come out and essentially reverse himself and say, instead of dealing with a man of low character is fundamentally incompatible with the good of the nation, he said, well, Donald Trump's failings are irrelevant character, personality issues. Irrelevant, he called them, 22 years later. And frankly, I think if you didn't know that by, November of 2020, that was a problem, you certainly knew it a month or two later with everything we've seen with trying to overturn the election. And it was sad, really, because he was a man I grew up respecting, but I can't respect that. I can't respect someone that, basically when his political interests are suited for calling out something that is wrong, he'll do it. And when his interests are not suited, he'll reverse himself without even bothering to mention that he is doing so or pointing out that just the issues he's struggling with. It was just sort of, well, this is what we need to do for power. And
that's
the thing is, in my view, anyone that needs power that badly should never have it.
That's exactly right. If you've got to go to that length to get it, and I think that goes all the way back to 1789 and George Washington in that first inaugural saying he hoped that the foundations of our national policy will be laid in the pure and immutable principles of private morality. That he called on free government to exemplify those attributes that will make its citizens proud and command the respect of the world. And I think as we look at that kind of public and private morality that Washington called for at the beginning of this nation, that we should expect the same of our leaders, our public servants. It doesn't require them to be perfect. No one is. But it does necessitate integrity and congruency and behavior that will command the respect of the world and make the citizens of the country proud. As we round this out, Cliff, I love where you concluded the piece in terms of this kind of vicious cycle. And again, a lot of it's justification for power or influence's sake. What's the path forward? How do we restore not only that kind of morality to the public square and public service, but how do we make sure that we're doing that regardless of whether someone is red or blue or Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative?
I think that there is no easy way out. There is no easy fix. There is no quick fix. There is no switch that can be flipped. However, I do think this, and that is, I'll quote the great philosopher Michael Jackson. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make the change. In other words, if you're not willing to do it yourself, to your own side, to your own friends, there's nobody else coming to do it for you. It has to start with people that are willing to look at themselves in the mirror and say, I need to do the hard thing because it's right and because in the long run, doing the right thing is its own reward.
Yeah.
Not, look, can I get away with this for a short-term fix?
That's
And I think that kind of thinking, it starts with each person.
That's right.
Each voter, each commentator, each political staffer, each congressman, all the way down, all the way up. I think that's the only way this changes. And I wish I could say it could start, it'll be over tomorrow. It won't be. It won't be over next year. It won't be over probably the next decade. But I do think that people demanding change and people doing small things in small ways and then eventually bigger things in bigger ways will make a difference over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may not be changed tomorrow, but it can begin today with each of us looking in the mirror and understanding what it means for us to live up to that higher standard. Cliff Smith, lawyer, former congressional staffer in Washington, D.C. He's the Washington Project Director at the Middle East Forum, joining us today from India. Cliff, we appreciate you staying up very late your time. Wonderful piece at Deseret.com, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Very important that private morality, public behavior, being willing to speak truth to power, not just to the other side, but more importantly to your friends. And it is true that changing that conversation, that integrity and moral conversation in the country won't happen overnight, but it can begin today. But it begins with each one of us living up to that higher standard and understanding what that actually means in the public square. And again, going back to George Washington, we really do have to have the principles of private morality, that honesty and integrity, so that we can have people in high places that will make the citizens of this country proud and command the respect of the nation.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Classrooms are filling up again. Bus drivers are learning their routes. And teachers are breaking out homework.
Turn to page 12.
Listen, with so many kids back outside, go easy on the gas pedal. Take a few extra seconds to look for bikes and kids in backpacks. Help make the start of school
Quiet down.
a little nicer.
That's better.
A friendly reminder from everyone at KSL Radio.
It's easy to think all money managers are pretty much the same. But at Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Different? How? You sell high-commission investment products, right?
No. Fisher Investments doesn't sell any commission-based investment products.
Well, you must earn commissions on trades.
Nope, never at Fisher. We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in our client's best interest. It's the highest standard of care for a financial advisor.
How do you know what's in their best interest?
We get to know our clients and then tailor a portfolio based on their goals and needs.
But you probably sneak in some hidden and layered fees.
No. We have one transparent management fee, structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, you really do look out for your clients.
That's because our top priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. It might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments and securities involve the risk of loss.
Watch parties aren't what they used to be.
Welcome to today's matinee.
Ever since we got Xfinity, my little sister and her friends can easily stream all their favorite stuff.
We'll start with 2 episodes of Top Chef, then Chopped.
When I was a kid, we'd worry about buffering. Now they just worry about what's on the charcuterie board.
Enjoy these fine meats and cheeses.
These are just cut up hot dogs and spray cheese.
Indeed.
The best way to stream your favorites is on the Xfinity 10G network. Now through September 6th, new customers can get 1.2 gig internet on the Xfinity 10G network made for streaming for just $25 a month for 2 years when you add Xfinity Mobile. There's no annual contract and you get Wi-Fi equipment included. Plus, add Now TV for just $20 a month. Go to Xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless bill and an auto-pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. Now TV and Xfinity Mobile require Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and Wi-Fi equipment. Actual speeds vary. Stream Top Chef on Peacock.
Attention smart homeowners. You don't have to fall for flashy promises and companies that don't even prove their work. At Your Service Pros uses third-party verification software called MeasureQuick to ensure your new HVAC system is installed correctly. This ultimate game changer in the HVAC industry lets you, the homeowner, have proof of how your system was installed. At Your Service Pros utilizes our Bluetooth tools to upload all of your system's information into MeasureQuick. We rely on data-driven insights to properly commission, optimize, and fine-tune your HVAC system for peak performance, improving your family's comfort, lowering your utility bills, and extending the life of your HVAC system. With rebates and tax credits available totaling more than $7,500 on a dual fuel heating and cooling system, it is now more important than ever that your HVAC system be installed correctly. So call us today at 801-YOUR-PRO. That's 801-YOUR-PRO. Have the peace of mind of saving up to 50% on your new system and knowing it's installed correctly by calling 801-YOUR-PRO.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, funding through the EPA's Clean School Bus program is helping Utah's school districts get electric buses. Second, mortgage interest rates just hit their highest level in 21 years, but haven't put a damper on housing construction, which surged in July. Third, 1 week after the wildfires consumed homes on Maui, many thousands are displaced, more than 100 people are confirmed dead, and more than 1,000 people are still missing. Right now, it's 96 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Well, many in Hawaii are still reeling from the devastating wildfires in Maui, but the town of Lahaina isn't the only town that was hit significantly. Others hit by the fire have displaced families, destroyed homes, lost lives. And someone who has strong ties to Maui, one of our favorite friends at KSL TV, has been following all of these stories over the last 10 days. And Ashley Moser, reporter for KSL TV, joins us in studio. Ashley, thanks for jumping in.
Aloha, Boyd. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you had a story yesterday on some of the missionaries that are focusing not just in Lahaina, but outside that. Give us that story.
Yeah, I made a connection with the senior missionary couple for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Lahaina First Ward. So they lived right there in Lahaina. Surprisingly, they had a zone conference the day of the fire, and so all of the missionaries were out in a different part of the island. Wow. And so they couldn't get back in, obviously. And so, of course, what do missionaries do? They get right to work. They found opportunities to serve at local shelters. So some of the church meeting houses have been serving as shelters. Right. And they found, other shelters around the area, and so they've been helping out there. But they noticed that there was just such an influx of volunteers coming in right after that fire. Yeah. They actually weren't needed, so they looked for other opportunities. So many people don't realize this, but there are some other wildfires across the island. It has been such a dry summer statewide. And so there's a fire that has already taken 19 homes up country Maui. It's in the area of Kula. So it's about 25 miles to the east of Lahaina. Okay. A lot of these people have been saying, we understand Lahaina, it's getting all the much needed attention and love and support. Yeah. But then there are these families that are up the mountains that don't have that. And so these missionaries found opportunities to serve. They helped. The winds were so strong, so a lot of these trees were down, hampering efforts for firefighters to get to these areas. 19 homes again displaced, or 19 families displaced with 19 homes burning, and power lines down. So these missionaries, they got to work. They are clearing roads. They're doing things that people that are paid to do are doing. So they're doing amazing work.
And it is extraordinary to just see that spirit of volunteerism that always comes in these kinds of moments. Sometimes it's sad that it takes a tragedy like this for people to say, okay, I can make a difference. I can do something today. and you've been watching that. You've been watching a number of different scenarios of how that's been playing out. I know you've got something new coming up tonight at 10 o'clock on KSL TV. Tell us about that.
So many stories coming out of Lahaina, locals, and then also visitors. We know that our Utahns love to visit Hawaii. Maui is a destination for them. So I got in touch with a Delta family, and they went over for a 10-day trip. Their dad had a work trip, so all the kids, family of 7, tagged along. They rented a condo in Lahaina. The day of the fire, they said, "Oh my goodness, it was so windy. The kids are getting stir crazy, but we can't go to the beach. It's too windy, too choppy." So they ended up going to an aquarium on the other side of the island. Similar situation where they tried to get back in, but the traffic was so long, and they hadn't realized what was going down. They weren't watching the news. On vacation, you don't watch.
On vacation, we shouldn't have to watch that.
I don't think so, right? And so they were sitting in traffic for 2 to 3 hours, and then they looked at their phones and they realized, "Oh my goodness, Lahaina's gone. What do we do next?" And so they found a shelter, and they actually slept there for 2 nights. And the quote that stuck out to me during our interview was, "We felt bad taking a place, from a local family, thinking that they probably needed that place to stay." But they said the people at the shelter were so welcoming, and that's what we call the Aloha Spirit. They said, "It doesn't matter if you're a visitor or a local. You come here, we'll feed you, we'll clothe you, and you have a place to stay." So they stayed there for 2 nights. So they shared that experience with me and how they're, connected to this community now that they've been, on the ground watching that devastation firsthand.
In the middle of it. And that Aloha Spirit translates into any language at all, and anyone and all comers are part of that Aloha Spirit. As you've been following this, and this obviously this is very personal to you, give us kind of your sense of riding through that emotion as you report on it. That's a hard thing to separate that human element from here's the facts, here's the story that we need to tell. But kind of walk us through that component.
Yeah. So when I first, started seeing the reports coming out of Lahaina, I have my husband's uncle that lives there and cousin. And so we reached out to them. It took a couple hours to really hear, even days to hear back from them. We first heard back from Uncle Hector. He said thankfully he got out that night, but his story was similar to a lot of other people. They didn't have the evacuations. Nobody knew really what was going on. So he had waited with his landlords until about 9 p.m. And then they heard and saw the fire. And they said, "We heard loud booms. We saw the fire coming closer to our property, so we just left." And the area of Lahaina, it's right on the coast. You have like a northern side where a lot of resorts are, Ka'anapali, and then you've got the south side. So he was on the northern side. He ended up, evacuating to the north. And his son was to the south. So can you imagine being separated from your son, not knowing, with the cell service being down, not knowing where he ended up? So it took him a day to finally connect. He had to go drive on the other side of the island to get to Kahului, which is where the airport is, where a lot of people travel to. And so they connected. But just hearing that story and his extended family, they're still looking for family members. They have an older couple that auntie and uncle, they still can't find. And so it's just heartbreaking to hear these stories. And I think all of us feel what they're feeling, because it's devastating, heartbreaking, and you want to be there for them. Yet here I am thousands of miles away. And so the way that I kind of comfort myself is, I'm going to continue to cover the story as much as I can, just to bring awareness to the situation there and how Utahns can help, which also, Utahns, I got to give them a round of applause. They've been amazing. They've donated to our Maui fundraiser on KSL.com, KSL News Radio. And it's just been amazing to see people come together, and that's what Utahns do. Yeah, it's amazing. And of course, Bonneville, our parent company, kicked that off with their own donation, which was significant. And I'm not even sure what the total is now, but it's a big number. It goes up every day. $200,000+. $200,000+. And that is, we always talk about doing something that makes a difference, and Utahns know how to do that in a really extraordinary way. Anything surprise you in all of this, Ashley, as you've gone through and covered all of this? To me, the numbers. I mean, we don't really know how many people are going to pass away because of this. I mean, the number is 110 today, but that's just going to continue to go up. We hear from leaders in Hawaii, and they say that number is going to increase significantly. And to think about all the families that are still looking for family members, it's been over a week, Boyd. I can't imagine that. I just don't know, So that is surprising, to lose an entire community overnight. And for the homes to be gone, for the businesses to be gone. My uncle worked along, that area, and he doesn't have a job now. He doesn't have a place to live. It's amazing to see how many families are going to have to rebuild because of this.
Yeah, and that uncertainty, the uncertainty of not knowing where a loved one is, the uncertainty of not knowing I don't have a job, I don't have a house, all of the mental gymnastics of that, I think has to be exhausting beyond just witnessing the devastation, being part of that. And this is also one of those, as I continue to watch it, and I have so loved your reporting on this because it just shows the resiliency of the human spirit and that aloha spirit.
Yep, definitely. It's been nice to highlight those stories with Utah Connections, and I'll keep doing them as long as we see them. So please, if you know any stories, reach out to me on social media, and we'll get those reported.
Awesome. And a new story airing tonight at 10 p.m. on KSL TV. Check that out. Ashley Moser, reporter, anchor, KSL TV. Thanks so much for joining us today.
You,
and again, you can be part of that. Donate to help Maui. You can go to KSLNewsRadio.com, KSLTV.com. This is your chance. Do something that makes a difference today. This is your chance to be part of the solution. We'll go ahead and step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour, Hurricane Hilary is expected to make landfall this weekend off the coast of Southern California. KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says we're already seeing the impacts of increased moisture here in Utah.
Right now, what we're seeing is monsoon moisture that's streaming into the state. We're seeing thunderstorms pop in the mountains, drift into the valleys. That will be the case again tomorrow. And then Saturday, we already start to see influence from that tropical storm that's approaching.
The storm is expected to further increase the risk of flash floods in southern Utah early next week. Students at Parkview Elementary School and their families now have access to eye care through a new vision center built right inside the school. State House Minority Leader and resident of Salt Lake City's West Side, Angela Romero, says this means a lot for this side of town.
Here on the West Side, we get prisons, we get the inland port, but this is something that's here specifically for the community, specifically for their families, to help them.
Students and other community members can get care at the New Vision Center, whether they have insurance or not. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. As the residents continue to evacuate the capital of Canada's Northwest Territories from an incoming wildfire, fire officials continue to grapple with the impact of Canada's most devastating fire season ever.
So far this year, over 6 times the amount of land has burned in Canada compared to the year-to-date average. Currently, the acreage burned is more than 600% of normal. The national preparedness level in Canada has been at its highest level. That means 5 out of 5 since May 11, 2023. That's more than 3 months. Back in late July, numerous wildfires even broke out as far north as Canada's Arctic Circle.
ABC News meteorologist Melissa Griffin reporting. Your money at this moment, so things still stayed in the red. 290 points down for Dow. S&P has lost 33 points. The NASDAQ has lost 157 points. Coming up, some storms on the way. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
Enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the economy the way it is, you're probably staying put. So invest in your home, your number one asset, with beautiful custom replacement windows from Advanced Window Products. They're a local Utah company building beautiful vinyl framed and insulated double pane windows for 37 years right here in Salt Lake City. Advanced Window Products will save you money on your energy bill. Get security features to keep your family safe. And at Advanced Window Products, it's all custom. And the best part? They're local. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So there's no middleman markup. You save on the highest quality windows in Utah. Plus, Rocky Mountain and Dominion offer rebates. For a limited time, they offer 60-month 0% financing. And right now, get $2,000 off 10 windows or more. They're working 8 weeks out. So make the call now. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors to tell you about our 10-year everything guarantee. Most contractors spout off having great warranties that last forever. But those warranties are always, and I do mean always, riddled with loopholes, exception, fine print, and nonsense. At RGS Exteriors, we cover everything. Parts, labor, material, everything and anything for 10 full years. There's no cost to you whatsoever. No hoops to jump through, no exceptions. Yes, the products we sell, like James Hardy Siding, our windows, gutter covers, come with a 25 to 50-year manufacturer's warranty, just like everybody else. But the truth is, the products almost never fail. It's always the labor and material which is never covered, so you're stuck paying for service calls. For peace of mind, call RGS Exteriors. You'll sleep easy for 10 full years. 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's 801-280-3110 or online rgsutah.com. Gutters, siding, windows, and all exteriors with the 10-year everything guarantee.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
We've had a report of an auto versus bicycle or motorcycle crash at Redwood Road and 70th South, and I am seeing some heavy and slow traffic on Redwood Road in the Taylorsville area, north of 70th South. Valley Freeway traffic looking pretty good. Earlier slowdowns northbound I-15 at the South Interchange have cleared. Fill up your bucket list in Bucks Elder County. History, recreation, and wildlife, along with excellent dining and shopping await you. Find out more at visitbuckseldercounty.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Looks like we're still in this warm spell with highs in the upper 90s. We will move down into the 80s over the weekend as these thunderstorms move in, and some areas are going to start. Those storms are going to start as early as this afternoon. Right now it's 97 degrees and partly sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Some members of Congress are calling for the end to a long-running research agreement between the United States and China. The push to cut research ties comes amid concerns, of course, about national security. And, of course, there are legitimate concerns about Chinese theft of scientific research and so on. We have to go beyond that, though. This is one of those think again kind of moments because it's about that interconnectedness of allies and alliances, strategic things that we do, and things that we choose not to do as a nation. And really thrilled to have joining us on the program today Caroline Wagner, a professor of public policy at Ohio State University. She conducts research in the field of science and technology and its relationship to policy, society, and innovation with a focus on international collaboration. So she is in the middle of this conversation. And Caroline, welcome to the show.
Hello, Boyd. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's dive into this. We often talk about the interconnectedness of the U.S. and China. Obviously, economics and trade obviously is a big part of that. And then, of course, we're competing when it comes to military and diplomacy. You raise some really important things in terms of science and technology, and those who want to disconnect or decouple that. Tell us, what is the risk of that? Obviously, we're competing with China on a bunch of fronts. How does that relate as it comes to science and technology?
So I'm glad you're bringing attention to this important issue. You're right. It is a bit below the waterline, but it's a very important issue because it affects so many parts of our lives. Our international collaborations with China have been more and more numerous over the years as China has developed their own science system, and they have done extremely good science over time, increasingly high-quality work, and it has resulted in a number of joint activities that have benefited the U.S., China, and the world, actually. The findings on folic acid needs for pregnant moms, diagnostic toolkits for viruses like SARS and COVID, efficient battery technologies, high-performance insulators, drought-resistant seeds. These are just a few of the developments that have come out of U.S. and China collaboration. Now, there is a part of science and technology that contributes to military capability and national defense. That's true in the United States, in China, and in most countries of the world. So the concern is that as China has grown in all kinds of strengths, not just science and technology, that perhaps our collaboration with China has disproportionately contributed to or is contributing to China's military might. And if we look over history, we can see that that's the case in almost all the leaders of the world who are leading in military strength are also science leaders at the same time. The two sectors kind of catalyze one another and enhance, and science does enhance military. However, it's a small and smaller proportion of all of the collaboration that we do with China. And usually the difference between and the time difference between what we do in collaboration and its eventual application in defense is usually fairly long and kind of complicated. So most of the scientific collaboration that we're doing with China, almost all of it, has very, very little to do with military applications.
I think that's such an important point, and just for our listeners, I want them. We often talk about the context here that one of the real leadership skills of the 21st century is understanding allies and these kinds of alliances or partnerships that a business will often go head to head with a competitor, but they might have to collaborate and work together to deal with a regulatory thing that's maybe impacting the entire industry. We actually see that. We actually see that with China and Russia as it relates to North Korea. We're going to go head to head with Russia and China on a host of different things, and they're very important partners when we try to deal with a nuclear North Korea. And so it seems to me what you're saying is that in the science and in research, this is another area where, we're going to go head to head on a lot of things, and we benefit, and there's a lot of value when we do this part of it together.
Yes. I do think this is a public policy issue for the United States. As more knowledge is developed around the world, and there are many nations that have developed their science system, none so spectacularly as China, but they're developing their science system, and more knowledge is good for everyone, right? So, the way in which your nation absorbs knowledge, translates it into products and processes, and makes use of it is the challenge for public policy. And it seems to challenge all of us, I think, to think about, if we cut off China, we are similar to that old fable where the neighbor says, well, I'd rather have my neighbor here lose his crop than and me and my neighbor lose our crops rather than see him prosper. So, to a great extent, we are kind of reverting into this nationalistic view of knowledge, when in fact knowledge is a global public good, and we as a nation and as states need to look at ways to better enhance our ability to exploit that knowledge.
Yeah, so important that getting stuck in that very nationalist grievance mentality of, I don't, rather than have them succeed, I'd rather them, come down to my level and a very backwards.
We'll both suffer. We'll both suffer, but hey, I'll feel good about it.
That's right. That grievance binds a lot of people together for some reason. So as you look at this moving forward, what is it that you're watching, Caroline, as you see this play out and see some of this debate going on? You're one of those dot connector people, and I love the way that you do this in terms of relating science and technology, that research component, to policy, society, and innovation, and then that international collaboration. What is on your horizon that maybe we're missing?
So, good question, and one that I think all of us could contribute to thinking about. One of the things we may be missing is that we have an underlying concern about foreigners in general, that maybe just as we did a number of years ago with Japan, that we're fearful of China, and we're not really paying close enough attention to that fact when in fact Chinese people are here in the United States. There are colleagues, there are students, there are neighbors, and my sense is that a number of people in China and in the United States who are of Chinese descent fear that they're going to be the victims of bias, and fear because of this rise in political concerns about the relationship. So that's one thing that I'm personally concerned about, and I think we should talk about more. The second thing I'm watching is public statements on both sides, China and the United States, about how we handle the international collaborative relationship. We're literally, as you said, and I think it's great you're discussing it, we are literally on the precipice of allowing to lapse an agreement that we've had for 40 years with China on science and technology. It has guided the relationship. It has set boundaries, established norms, created functions and capabilities to work together, and we're about to let it go. Personally, I see that as just a terrible mistake to do that when China has gotten to the point where they are doing world-class science. At this time, why would we cut them off? Just because they've gotten good or smart? We need to learn how to manage that relationship well so the U.S. benefits, absolutely. But to cut it off now, just as they're getting to be tops in science, seems very short-sighted on our side.
Yeah, and I think it's so true that in the sciences, it's you're looking for the truth, you're looking for the innovation, not for a country, not for a specific group of people. It's for the world, and giving that up because of a scarcity mentality or a fear mentality, I think prevents us from really moving forward on a host of significant things. Caroline Wagner, professor of public policy at The Ohio State University. Caroline, thanks so much for joining us today. Great insight, great perspective on a really important topic.
Thanks for bringing this to people's attention, Boyd.
All right. Again, that's Caroline Wagner from Ohio State University. And we'll step aside for one last break. When we come back, some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
I was talking with one of the trainers at our gym the other day, Tim, about weight loss, because he had mentioned, hey, you lost a lot of weight. And I said, thank you. I did the SOTA weight loss thing. He said, I have clients and we can work out till the cows come home. But if they don't change what they do in the kitchen, this is never going to work. And it reminded me of other times I've tried to lose weight by working out. If you don't change what you eat, the way you eat, the intervals you eat, if you don't change that basic structure, no amount of running or lifting weights is going to do it. You've got to make those changes, and SOTA weight loss makes it easy.
Well, and by the way, the older you get, the less effective all of that workout becomes. So it has to come from somewhere else, and that is learning how to look at food differently and make food work for your body. It's a fuel for your system to go forward. You're going to feel so much better, and you're going to look at life a little bit different. My daughter certainly does, and she lost 42 pounds. Find out more about this great program. Go to SOTAweightloss.com, spelled S-O-T-A. Think Tim and Amanda. SOTA Weight Loss is state-of-the-art.
The name's Osborne, Josh Osborne, and I'm so excited to announce our 00 summer sale here at Volkswagen Southtown.
Summers are for thrills, chills, and hot deals. Get a new high-tech VW for nothing down and no payments for 90 days. Our 00 agents are standing by to make sure you pay nothing down and have no payments for 3 months so you can achieve your top secret mission this summer.
Come see why we're Utah's #1 Volkswagen dealer. Get to VWSouthtown.com.
2022 VW rankings. Financing through VCI on select models OAC. See dealer for details.
Attention taxpayers. Ready for some bad news? With $80 billion in new funding from Congress, the IRS has launched their most aggressive hiring campaign ever to ramp up enforcement. If you're ignoring your taxes, don't delay another minute because your paycheck, your bank account, even your home or business could already be at risk. Now, here's the good news. Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm, can get to work immediately, helping to protect you from the IRS. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, their tax attorneys and licensed professionals are experts at resolving tax problems. Let them help determine if you qualify for the Fresh Start Initiative or other powerful IRS tax assistance programs. Take control. Call Optima Tax Relief now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Hey guys, are you over 30? Let's talk about testosterone and performance. Your testosterone can decline at an average of 1 to 2% a year after you turn 30. And Revive Men's Health have been experts at treating men with low testosterone and ED since 2011. We're the clinic guys come to when their current treatment isn't working. They have a complicated medical condition, or they're just not happy with their performance. We love what we do and the patients we care for. You can ask our patients. We did, and we have a 99% patient satisfaction rate this year. Our patients even tell us we're more affordable than their insurance deductibles and copays. Let's get to the bottom of your issues and fix them. That's what we do, and we do it really well. Book your T-Check and exam today. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or send us a private message at revivemenshealth.com.
2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Smartin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
Get the Intermountain West Contractor's Advantage. Quality, speed, value for your money, and $1,000 off a roof replacement. Visit IWCroofing.com.
If you've had painful kidney stones, you know you don't want more. Moonstone Stone Stopper is a simple solution that works. Created and recommended by top kidney stone doctors, Stone Stopper is an alkali citrate formula scientifically proven to prevent crystallization. Stone Stopper's patented formula is gentle on the stomach and is available in easy-to-swallow capsules, gummies, and powder drinks that make hydration delicious. Stone Stopper is available at participating Walmart and Walgreens stores. Look for the red stop sign on the bottom shelf of the vitamin aisle. For more information or to find a store near you, go to stonestopper.com.
Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News.
We're committed to letting you know exactly what's going on. On our show, we're going to bring you up to speed on what's happening in the world to this moment. At the same time, the news can be really burdensome. It can leave you feeling a little bit depressed and even a little bit more depressed. My Minute of News is just a moment to lift you up. I'm blessed that KSL has given me the freedom to talk about whatever I want. Literally, it is my minute of news. Sometimes it's pegged to what's happening that very day. Sometimes it might be something bizarre that you didn't know happening somewhere else in the world. To make you smile for a moment, even on a difficult day, and make you realize the world is still spinning. I am so honored that so many people have appreciated and enjoy the Minute of News every afternoon.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, Hurricane Hilary is expected to make landfall this weekend off the coast of Southern California, increasing flash flood potential in southern Utah. Second, students at Parkview Elementary School and their families now have access to eye care through a new vision center built right inside the school. Third, residents continue to evacuate the capital of Canada's Northwest Territories from an incoming wildfire. Right now, it's 97 degrees and partly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, I want to go back to a conversation we had earlier in the show with Stephanie Slade, senior editor of Reason magazine. She had a fantastic piece in Law and Liberty talking about the promise of the Bill of Rights. And I want to hit just a couple of things in context in terms of what Stephanie wrote and how it applies. And it was interesting. She actually started out talking about James Madison in the Federalist Papers. And he described something really interesting, that as long as we have this free society and people are at liberty to exercise their minds, they're going to have different opinions. And when different opinions happen, there's going to be disagreements, and that's okay. Madison talked about it in the context of having a very fractious people, and that's okay. Those differences are great. That distinction is awesome. It's part of what makes this country very unique. But we went through and talked about it in the context of one of the things that the Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments to the Constitution, were designed to do, were to take a whole series of questions off of the political table. I think that's important. We throw way too many things on the political table that shouldn't be on the political table. First Amendment happens to be one of those. and all the things that are in there. Those aren't up for political debate. But yet we try to do that. We try to throw it on that table, and we just need to disconnect it. And we can have space for the application. We can have space for differences in policy, but we don't have to turn everything into a 6-alarm fire where everybody's going to go away feeling angry, frustrated, and filled with contempt. We just don't have to do that. And I think that's part of the genius of the founders of this country, that they were literally trying to take some of those issues off of the political table. And sadly, because we have become all politics all the time, we've lost not only some of the important policy discussions, we've also lost some of the principles in the process. And a lot of that ends up being manifest in these loyalty tests by political parties. And both political parties seem to be obsessed these days with the issue of loyalty. You've got parties, you've got pundits across the political spectrum, those who are supposed to support and encourage dialogue in the marketplace of ideas. All the time we're just seeing this charge and questioning of those who think critically or differently than anyone else. And then they get declared to be not loyal. Not a loyal Democrat, not a loyal Republican, not loyal to President Biden, not loyal to former President Trump, and on it goes. So what loyalty means and why it matters, and what to do with those pesky people who put their loyalty to principles ahead of loyalty to party or politicians, those are the questions that the political elite and everyday citizens ought to be grappling with. We have to get to that. Currently, on the Republican side of the aisle, they want all of their candidates running to be the nominee for president to sign a loyalty pledge, that they will be loyal to the party, that they will be loyal to whoever is the party's nominee. That is loyalty to a person. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think you can be loyal to a set of principles and some policies that go around that. But sadly, the more we have these loyalty tests in our political parties, the less likely we are to have real discussions based on principle that lead to good public policy. And we have to remember that ultimately, that's the goal. That's the goal. The goal is not about political power. The goal is about good public policy so that the people of this country can live their lives in freedom, that they can have opportunity, upward mobility, and experience all of those things that are part of what we regularly refer to as the American dream. But when everything is centered on a loyalty pledge to a politician or a personality or a political party, we are so far afield from the discussion we ought to be having. And I think that's why the inspired framers of our nation built it on principles. Didn't build it on people, didn't build it on political parties. It was a, kind of the baseball umpire analogy that we're going to call balls and strikes. The duty of the umpire is to call the balls and strikes. Doesn't matter whether the fans are cheering or jeering or frustrated or angry. Doesn't matter how many complaints the players or coaches make. An umpire has to be loyal to the rules of the game and the principle of fair play. Pretty simple. And I think that's the kind of loyalty we need to have in the country. Let's just call balls and strikes. And it's pretty easy to do that when you take a lot of the things off of the political table, because then you can actually see far enough to tell if it was a ball or a strike. And we've seen this on the national scale. We've seen it on the local scale of what happens when things become so politically obsessed that we can no longer even see clear enough to call a ball or a strike. And often what happens is we end up arguing about what should be a ball or a strike. And remember, if you're complaining about the rules or the referees, which is usually complaining about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, that means you're losing. So